Coming up on Tech News today, we've got more Galaxy Gear leaks, but do you want one? Microsoft keeps Surface price drops, and is Microsoft going to take a stake in Foursquare? Is that going to American Express? All that and more next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, August 30th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT8. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Maya Zakhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And Tom Merritt is at DragonCon representing the team in Atlanta, Georgia. But we will continue because the show must go on Friday, after all, with the top 10 stories of the day in the News Views. In case you were wondering where Atlanta was, it's in Georgia. Laws that would heavily fine software and internet companies for failing to make their products wiretap friendly are likely to start riots thanks to eye-opening information about how the government collects data due to people like Edward Snowden. Now, before Snowden, a proposed law that President Obama was reportedly ready to back would have been a compliance regime for technology companies. But violating the civil rights of the general population doesn't generally sit well, even though wiretaps are legitimate ways to curb crimes. So, tech companies are now in a position to go dark technically. Question is, will they?
What's this? More Galaxy Gear leaks? That's true. According to Among Tech, the Galaxy Gear will boast a 10-hour battery life and be available in two models. One will have 8 gigabytes of storage, the other 6 gigabytes. The site also casually mentions that while the Galaxy Gear won't use a curved glass display, which was confirmed by a Samsung exec, both Microsoft and Apple will use curved glass in their watches.
Speaking of Microsoft, it's made previously temporary price cut promotions for its Surface devices permanent as of yesterday. The Surface Pro, the Touch Cover, and the Surface RT bundle price adjustments will begin to roll out to all markets where the Surface and Surface accessories are currently sold. So, Surface Pro will now start at $799. This is American dollars. Touch covers will start at $79. The limited edition touch covers will start at $89, and the Surface RT bundles will now start at $399.
Still speaking of Microsoft, according to Bloomberg, both Microsoft and American Express are trying to invest in Foursquare. The two companies are actually competing to pick up an equity share in the location check-in company. Bloomberg reached out to all three companies, but of course, none made any comments on the talks.
Yeah, let's stop talking about Microsoft and start talking about Aereo.
Yeah.
CEO Chet Kanoja, told the International Business Times yesterday that Aereo plans to launch its product on Android devices in September. Now, the company had originally hoped to roll out an app for Android last summer, but it was delayed. Aereo, of course, has expanded from New York City to Boston, Atlanta, the state of Utah, and plans larger city rollouts across the U.S.
Speaking of Microsoft's best buddy, Nokia's car platform is here. No, really, it's called Here Auto, which is Nokia's connected infotainment car system. Here Auto will feature mapping and navigation with 3D maps and real-time traffic information. The system also links back to Nokia's servers, so if you bookmark destinations on an app or on the web, you'll be able to access them in your car without doing any extra work. Nokia plans to sell Here Auto to automakers who will be able to customize the platform with their own UI and apps.
Amazon plans to alter its pricing policy for third-party traders and investigations in the UK and Germany. Specifically, it will drop a clause banning traders signed up to its marketplace platform from offering products elsewhere for less. The change goes live across the EU starting today, and as a result, the inquiries in the UK into whether the policy was anti-competitive are expected to be closed.
If you've been waiting for BlackBerry Messenger on iOS and Android, you'll have to wait some more because there isn't an official launch date yet. But BlackBerry did put up a launch page where you can input your email address, so you'll be the first to find out when BlackBerry Messenger hits other platforms. The page also explains what BBM is if you have no idea.
Sign up and find out what it is. Facebook's updated their privacy policy yet again, and this time will now use your main profile photo to find matches to other photos that your friends may have tagged you in. Chief Privacy Officer Aaron Egan says, don't worry, this is good for users. Quote, it's actually a good thing to be tagged in more photos because that's how you'll know they exist on Facebook. Then from there, you can take the photos down or, if you need to, report them.
According to a New Jersey appellate court, a person texting a driver may be liable for negligence if the texter knows the recipient is operating a vehicle. The court said the sender of the message has a relationship to the public who use the roadways similar to that of a passenger physically present in the vehicle. The court also said the texter has a duty to users of the public roads to refrain from sending the driver a text at that time.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by our friends at Squarespace. You know how much we like Squarespace. It's the all-in-one platform that makes it extremely easy and really actually fun to create a professional website or online portfolio. You know, we've been looking at a variety of Squarespace sites over the last week or two, and we've been asking you to send in a tweet to let us know if you've got a Squarespace blog that you really like. So let's look at themusicservice.net today. It's amazing music review site. Blog template is easy to navigate. It looks really nice. There's a variety of sections. If you go under new music, you can find embedded music videos. They play right in line in the player on your site. There are clips linked from YouTube or Vimeo because it's easy with Squarespace to incorporate other social networks and videos and sites that you hang out on. You can easily share posts on all your favorite social media. So if you see something you like, you can share it with a friend. And the vinyl picture is a pretty cool background image for the banner. Look at that. You just upload it, and Squarespace is very, very good at making sites look awesome with just, you don't even really need that much to start with. Some of the reasons why you will love Squarespace for yourself is that the platform is an all-in-one solution, and they're constantly updating it. There are new features all the time. Their support is great. The design templates are a great jumping-off point to start from. I'm working on my own blog right now, and I found a template that I like, and I'm not really going to make many changes to it, but you can customize as well. It's very, very easy to use, but if you need help, Squarespace has an amazing support team. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are ready to answer your questions. It's also really well priced. Starts at just $8 a month, includes a free domain if you sign up for a year, and you probably want to if you build a site. Of course, it's mobile ready as well. Their code is lovely. Search engine optimized. Squarespace has it all. If you'd like to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code TNT8 to get 10% off your new account. You can start a trial for free, by the way. You don't need a credit card or anything. You just start building your website. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, because we think you'll like it, use that offer code TNT8. That's TNT and then the number 8 to get 10% off your account. And don't forget to tweet with the hashtag TNT Squarespace if you'd like us to look at your site next, because we'd love to feature you on a future episode of this show. And thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. Joining us, as he does on Fridays, is none other than Mr. Darren Kitchen. Darren, how are you?
Hey, Sarah, I'm doing well. I'm hacking across Point Richmond here.
Yeah, you're actually back in a familiar place. We haven't seen you at home in a while.
I've been all over, so it's good to be home and, just planning out the next launch.
All right, and playing the part of Len Peralta today is none other than Ayaz Akhtar. Ayaz.
That's right. I'll be drawing today or sketching while we're talking. So if I appeared confused, there's a better reason for it than normal.
Of course, Len Peralta is usually our Friday animator. He draws some of our discussion stories, well, all of our discussion stories, as we talk about them, and then we look at them at the end of the show, and he's a big hit, and we didn't want to, he couldn't be with us
today.
Couldn't
let you down.
So we figure, Ayaz, you're just going to step in and carry the torch.
We're going to make sure that you appreciate Len a lot more after today's episode, I promise.
Awesome. All right, well, let's start with, there's a great story in Wired. Talked about it, touched on a little bit in the news views today. That sort of just raises the question of what tech companies are going to do as far as working with the government or not. Profiles, same day, detailed documents made public on the NSA's X Keyscore collection program as an example of the Facebook engineering team publishing a blog post stating that all access to Facebook via apps and browsers was now SSL encrypted. Now, Facebook says this was not a directly about that, but the timing of it was quite coincidental. Then there are other examples. Governments used to lean on compromised certificate authorities, for example, to allow them to intercept encrypted traffic. The Iranian government was doing this quite a bit. Google made changes to the Chrome browser to stop the practice. Similar updates expected soon in IE. So you've got these examples of companies not necessarily saying, government, we refuse to work with you, but changing the technology so that the government doesn't have the access that it previously had. Now, Wired asks a really good question in their article, saying there's no law right now stopping a company like Apple or Facebook or Google from introducing security changes to stop, to sort of stop the government from being able to have these built-in backdoors. And why would they want the government to have these backdoors? Because then the public may go to a competing service. If you're using iMessage, for example, on Apple, Apple doesn't want you to decide to use something else that's more encrypted and therefore makes us feel safer. But it's a very interesting line to walk because you can't actually, you have to work with the government in some capacity. Darren, I know you follow a lot of these security stories really closely. This issue obviously isn't going away. So how do the tech companies play this, especially the ones who have enough power and enough users to really make a difference?
Well, I mean, they obviously have to regain user trust. A lot of those companies lost that trust when the whole Prism stuff broke, and those specific companies were called out for having had their information sniffed out. And this is actually a great opportunity because living in the post-Snowden world, these companies have to really innovate to try to regain that trust, and ultimately that's good for the users. When you think back to how consumers won, the crypto wars in the 90s, it was kind of a moot point because no one really implemented strong security until I think of an example like Firesheep, years ago, bringing attention to the fact that, hey, if you don't use SSL, everybody can see your stuff. And so a lot of companies were embarrassed and finally implemented that stuff. I think of the big, social networks and whatnot, I think Google's the only one that uses actual perfect forward secrecy kind of SSL. But still, the post-Snowden world puts a lot of pressure on these companies to actually implement proper security. And I don't think that we can expect, Congress or the like to, push through legislation which would mandate companies to kind of backdoor their own stuff. I mean, aside from Microsoft, who's already shown to have done that. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's really empowering to be in this post-Snowden world. It's going to be good for consumers. I think some of it won't matter in 10 years with quantum computing, but we have to do what we can now.
Yeah, I was looking at the article, and what bugged me about it is the fact that these companies can do something if they wanted to, and they could. But what it's going to do is cause friction between them and the U.S. government. Is that something they want? We saw that happen with BlackBerry in India. India wanted to backdoor to BBM. They said we couldn't do it. Eventually, found a way to do it. If the U.S. companies wanted to basically be a thorn in the side of the government, they could. But I just don't know what kind of trouble that's going to get them in the long run because they still operate here, they still work here, and they're still from here. So what kind of other issues and scrutiny would they be, I guess almost like revenge scrutiny would be going on if they did this at all? And that would create a larger mess. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, what legislation passes. Obviously, when there's sort of a public uproar, these things tend to go away. But for how long? How long until something pops up again when we've all moved on to something else? I know some of us won't move on ever, but you think about SOPA. That's a great example. SOPA, PIPA. It's public outrage. There is a shelf life in general. Speaking in general terms, of course. It's fascinating. All right, let's move on to something that's also fascinating, and that's the idea that Microsoft may take a stake in Foursquare. Is that a good partnership? I'm not sure yet, but Bloomberg's reporting that Microsoft and American Express are both vying to take an equity stake in Foursquare. Apparently, Foursquare's not selling lots of parts of itself off. They're just selling off one stake into it. They're competing bids. This is not a joint bid. Now, Foursquare is talking with other companies about a possible investment. Yahoo was rumored to be working on a deal with for Foursquare data a couple of weeks ago. And Microsoft's got experience with this kind of thing because it does have a stake in Facebook. Now, American Express could use Foursquare to compete with credit card rivals by tying marketing and loyalty programs with that kind of location data. Darren, which company seems like a better fit for Foursquare?
Amex. I mean, you're right. The loyalty thing is definitely up their alley. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they're doing with, what they recently did to try to get out of debt was, that their advertising And so it makes more sense to me for an Amex or really any kind of like loyalty program type stuff more than a technology company like Microsoft, but I can see why they're both interested in them.
I think the American Express partnership with Foursquare is the one that excites me the least, just because right now American Express already has some deals with Foursquare where you see specials pop up at particular stores. I happen to not have an American Express card in any fashion. Not for any particular reason, I just don't have one, and I don't know, I don't really plan to get one. So if American Express takes a big enough stake in Foursquare, I can see specials going away unless they actually pertain to people who have an American Express card. So I don't really like that idea because I feel like Foursquare, it's a free app. Anybody can download it. And if it turns into something where you need to have an American Express, well, it becomes somewhat useless to me as far as specials go. I liked the idea of Yahoo and Foursquare going into a partnership just because I think Yahoo's trying to be more of a modern company that has more strength in mobile. Foursquare has that. With Microsoft, I'm trying to figure out why. I understand why Microsoft would like a stake in Foursquare, and I understand that Foursquare isn't making all that much money, so this is probably going to happen with some company in some respect on Foursquare's side, but I think it's sort of an odd partnership, particularly because Microsoft and Facebook are so closely aligned, and Facebook has absolute competing technology and kind of tried to bury Foursquare a while ago, hasn't really succeeded, but has direct competing location functionality that it took from Foursquare.
I think Microsoft could just be looking at this as an investment opportunity over anything else. I don't know if they want to take some of the data over from Foursquare, what kind of leveraging they want to do. They already, I believe there's already Foursquare data that works with Bing Maps already. So, or maybe that's Yelp. I might be mixing up these things. But that kind of information could help support Bing, or if Microsoft's seeing this as an investment opportunity, saying, okay, eventually in the future, Foursquare is going to be making a lot of money with its advertising. So that way they'll make money. Because the amount of money they put into Facebook apparently is paid back 6 to 7 times over. Because when Facebook was, before it was public. Amex, I could really see why this would make a lot of sense, right? You could have your loyalty programs attached to Foursquare. It doesn't mean either one of these companies are taking over Foursquare. It's just a small equity stake, which could or could not direct the way the company goes.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm very fascinated with what Foursquare is going to do. It seems like this is a decision that is, well, it's obviously motivated by money, but I don't know, the Amex thing, it's just, that sort of bothers me. But yeah, as you say, if Amex isn't taking over the entire company, maybe it wouldn't be limited to just Amex loyalty points and specials. I don't know, it's hard to say. All right, let's move on to, well, some statistics. It's Friday, and this is kind of a fun little Friday story because I thought we could compare Kickstarter to IndieGoGo. Those are two, I guess, arguably the two big crowdfunding sites. There are others, but these are the two that you hear the most about. Researchers Jonathan Lau and Edward Junprung, who do some freelance work in the crowdfunding space, decided to compare Kickstarter and IndieGoGo just by sheer numbers. Now, Kickstarter has public data that they publish, so it's pretty easy to get their data on past funding programs. But for IndieGoGo, it was a little harder because they don't publish things the same way. So the two built a bot that scraped IndieGoGo's project section, which contains all the campaigns that ever launched. At least that's what IndieGoGo says. The bot ran on August 17th. IndieGoGo had about 4,900 pages of campaigns. Okay, so if you compare the two, at face value, Kickstarter has over 110,000 campaigns. The scrape found about 44,000 campaigns on IndieGoGo. But if you scrape multiple times over a month, IndieGoGo delists failed campaigns that raised less than $500. So that's kind of interesting. They're sort of taking data out of stuff that didn't really make them look very good. Kickstarter has successfully raised over 6 times more money than IndieGoGo, $612 million to $98 million. Kickstarter has 40 projects that it can say raised over $1 million. IndieGoGo has 3. The average success rate on Kickstarter is 44%. Well, that's under half, but it's almost half. IndieGoGo, based on the numbers of campaigns, found the success rate to be around 34%. However, if you factor in those delisted campaigns that sort of go away, obviously the average is a lot lower. And then 40% of dollars that IndieGoGo raised were generated from campaigns that raised more than $100,000. Now, on face value, you say, well, Kickstarter is just kicking IndieGoGo's butt. It's just it's a more popular platform, and they don't work exactly the same way, but in similar ways. Are they the Amazon of crowdfunding? I mean, is Kickstarter just the household name? Darren, do you think that this is an evolving space, or do we have a clear winner?
We may have a clear winner in people's perception at the moment, but I feel like there's definitely room to grow. We're kind of in the infancy of this whole concept, and I think that there's some really interesting stuff happening in kind of the self-hosted realm of this. Self-Starter is a good example. It's an open source project that you can get on GitHub that integrates with Amazon. You could tie it in with WePay or something like Stripe and allow you to host your own kind of Kickstarter-esque venture. A company, Tile, I believe, they were trying to raise 20 grand. They ended up getting 34 grand. I'd say that's a success. Those are things that you probably couldn't easily quantify. It's much easier to obviously just scrape both IndieGoGo and Kickstarter and draw some comparisons. But I'm going to tell you, if I were to try the model of crowdfunding whatsoever, I would be doing it myself with, cloning the self-starter GitHub and getting started out the door, not paying someone else 5% off the top. And I'm actually kind of surprised that that Canonical didn't do that with their Ubuntu Edge. So
Kickstarter's got the brand name recognition when it comes to that. And we've also seen some of the larger campaigns exist on Kickstarter. So we're seeing like things that are trying to raise $10 million. I think Pebble was a Kickstarter. We saw Ubuntu Canonical trying to do $32 million. So the fact that there's more money going to Kickstarter, that doesn't really surprise me because it seems like the higher profile things were there. IndieGoGo also has the option to have the flexible funding, so you might not necessarily have the larger projects there because Kickstarter sometimes has those requirements where you have to meet their criteria that allow it to be a Kickstarter project. IndieGoGo, as far as I know, is a little bit more flexible on its terms, so that will allow you to have smaller funded projects that might be a little bit more open-ended, which might not raise a lot of money. But the fact that either one of these things actually works, that surprised the heck out of me years ago when I saw that. I'm like, really? People are going to pay for this? And they do.
It's weird. Crowdfunding almost reminds me of the early days of blogging, where you chose your blog engine and your CMS and the software really carefully, and it was sort of supposed to say something about you. And now, well, you have a URL that you pointed to, and it's like it matters a lot less. There are certain tools that people would choose for a variety of reasons, but as a user browsing around, deciding to read a blog or deciding to crowdfund a project, it seems like down the road it'll matter less and less how you chose to put it together and whether or not excuse me, you decided to raise the money at all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. In fact, in some ways, it almost feels like eBay in the 90s, and that's kind of a glorious moment there. I would say that as far as the consumer is concerned, if what it comes down to for me, whether it's IndieGoGo, Kickstarter, or whatever have you, it's really just the barrier to entry. Like if, I see your thing and I'm like, for me at least, some of these funding some of these projects is really kind of an impulse thing. It's cool. It's the links going around Twitter, and you're like, oh, wow, and you get really jazzed in that moment. And then if there are not too many hoops to go through to give them your dollars, if, say, they integrate with Amazon and you're already in that system or PayPal or whatever have you, then that's what makes the difference for me.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on now to some more details about the Galaxy Gear.
Yeah, Galaxy Gear, the watch is supposed to come out September 4th. At least that's actually, this thing, Samsung exactly already said that. So that's going to happen September 4th. But the details keep coming. Among Tech, a website says that Galaxy Gear will have 10 hours of battery life. It's also going to have a gig of RAM, a choice of 2 storage options, 6 gigs or 8 gigs. 6 gigs seems like an odd number there. Actually, it's an even number, but you know what I mean there. Giga-ohm sources say that the watch will have a camera and a 4-megapixel sensor and the ability to record 720p HD video. Also, screenshots of the Samsung Galaxy Gear companion app have also leaked. This is from EvLeaks on Twitter. It shows that you can connect your watch via NFC. The app also lets you set clocks, apps, and has the ability to find your watch. So if you lose it, you should be able to use the app to get it. Darren, more leaks. We got more and more leaks about this watch. Are you more or less excited about this?
I'm just as excited, I'd say. the thing is, if it were like one of those in the moment, when was the last time you were in the moment just surprised by a product release and you were just like, didn't see that one coming, and then you just wanted to put your dollars down like immediately? Maybe the first iPhone. I'm trying to think of when there that happened, and I don't think this really hurts it whatsoever. So yeah, I'm about the same.
I think 10 hours of battery life is a disappointment. And that's okay. 10 hours, great. Sounds like the life of my iPad. You pretty much with casual use, you get through a day. But this is something that you're wearing. I mean, that means you're charging it without fail every single night. I think that might be asking a lot of people to have one more thing that you're using. That it's got a camera and that sounds cool. 720p video, that also sounds cool too. But it has to. This is something that it's not as passive as I think people are going to want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a watch, right? It's only got 10 hours of battery life. You usually wear a watch because you want to know what's going on all the time.
Yeah.
And if your day is only 10 hours, I guess that works well. But these leaks to me are just, they seem like it's a little ridiculous that Samsung is not being more and more secretive about their devices. You had executives talking about this device, saying there's not going to be a flexible display. They're thinking about that in the future. So they're already talking about upcoming watch products, even though they haven't officially announced this one yet. I'm like Darren on this. I want to be surprised by something awesome. I don't know what else they can do with this watch from specs-wise. It seems like it's a nice little object. The question is how much it's going to cost and what real killer function will it have? Because with the companion app, you're just seeing like, oh, I could have multiple clocks. Well, okay, my regular wristwatch has that. Oh, I could also have the ability to find it, and that's kind of cool. But I don't know if that makes me want to buy the watch. Like now I have an app, I can find this thing. And you have your applications. They have to be very specific to fit on your wrist. I'm not sure what Samsung, like what kind of magic they have when it comes to the software they're going to have on it that you want to have this. But there's just everything about it is out now, and it doesn't seem that exciting to me.
Yeah, I feel like we're all headed towards this fatigue of the whole smart watch thing before anything really even comes to market, because the more leaks we get about what it'll be capable of, nothing sounds bad about this, but yeah, like Darren said, this is just technology that already exists. You're not reinventing the wheel in any way. You're putting something on your body somewhere, the wrist or whatever, that has functionality that your other technology already has. So sure, it might be cool and convenient, but there is no real wow factor. And I don't really see anything being a huge hit unless there is a wow factor. And what could it possibly do? I mean, we're not ready for holograms yet, so what? My 720p yeah, well, I am. Samsung, get with the program. But it's my iPhone already does better video than what this would be capable of, so I wouldn't choose this as.
You get to shoot video this way, right?
Well, sure.
That's more fun.
Right.
For the
Almost
times
like
I'm without
shooting
my
lasers.
phone, and when are those times? I mean, they're very few and far between.
According to that Korea Times report, this is marketed at young trendsetters.
I
so maybe
see.
we're just not young enough for this.
We're just fogies who don't get it.
Sarah, did you get a smartphone? I mean, obviously, right? Did you get a netbook or a tablet? How about an Ultrabook or a 3D TV? I mean, this is just, it has to be something every year.
It does, yeah.
So this is just it.
They
So,
have to convince us that tech is evolving with great evolutionary products that we don't necessarily want or need.
buy more stuff.
Buy
It's
more
like a
stuff.
3D TV of wristwatches.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah, now there you go. If it's glasses-free 3D on your wrist, oh, you've totally got something.
you've had enough.
But you have to hold your hand just so.
Yeah.
Don't put your arm down. It'll ruin
It's a
everything.
catch.
Yes, do that.
I think it's a catch-22 at this point as far as watches are concerned. We've spent all this time and all of these years ever since Dick Tracy wanting something like this. But yeah, like you said, the fact of the matter is it's probably only going to ever do as much as you already have on your phone. So then are you only bringing your watch when you leave the house and leaving your phone at home? I'd say most people probably wouldn't do that necessarily unless it truly replicated all that functionality and did it better than what you're used to. And I don't see that at this point.
Well, something that you do see is a lot of Facebook profile photos, right? Whether it's actually someone's face or maybe a picture of their child or their pet or something like that. So Your profile picture is actually going to become a lot more important as it pertains to Facebook privacy. As I mentioned in the news views, Facebook has updated their new privacy policy. It's supposed to go into effect on September 5th, so that's next week. And it makes it more clear how the company uses personal data to its over 1 billion users, and most of it is centered around how it delivers advertising. All the things that we share and do, what we like, how we interact with ads and applications. Our demographic data is all part of what Facebook takes from us and decides to use for advertising. And the company, in general, seems to just want to make it as clear as possible to cut down on confusion. However, something new is that it might start using customers' profile photos. And when I say might, it means that Facebook, when it introduces new security and privacy measures, it gives the public a chance to weigh in and possibly make amendments to the privacy policy. But this is what it wants to do. So my profile photo would help with facial recognition, which Facebook already has and is using in some capacity to use as data if a friend tags me in a photo, because the profile photo is supposed to be a pretty accurate representation of me. Now, not everybody uses their own picture, but most people do. So the photos are already public. Even if somebody has their profile completely locked down, you can usually find somebody on Facebook because at least you recognize them in that profile photo. So this is not something that's a privacy issue in and of itself, but Facebook doesn't currently use that photo to help recognize faces when other photos are uploaded to the service. Now, if you say, I hate this idea, I don't want Facebook to do this, you can opt out. But as an opt-out type of a thing, this will be turned on by default. And the exact proposed language change is, quote, we are able to suggest that your friend tag you in a picture by scanning and comparing your friend's pictures to information we've put together from your profile pictures and the other photos in which you've been tagged. Well, so this is a good way to interact for Facebook to trace your interactions across networks of friends, especially because it shows more who you're actually spending time with. If you've got a profile photo and then someone uploads a photo that matches your profile photo, it kind of proves that you and the friend were in the same place, or for whatever reason they have access to your photo. So that is carrying a little bit more weight than some sort of virtual friend that you just have on Facebook. Darren, I know Facebook's going to allow users to propose amendments. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to listen to everybody. Do you think there's going to be an outcry over this?
There'll be an outcry, and then, people will move on. It's not going to, as we've seen before, every time Facebook changes its privacy policy, there's an outcry. There used to be a forum for this. It's just Facebook's going to do what's in their best interest, and if they can make more money by having better analytics about who your real friends are, and they can tell, like, oh, well, we've got photos of you together, obviously, you're friends, then they can actually market to you better, and that will help Facebook. So they just need to make a quick change to their privacy policy. When you sign up, you say, hey, I agree to this and anything else that you throw at me later in time. And so, interestingly, if you wanted to do, say, the same thing yourself, you could actually do this without needing Facebook's privacy policy or anything like that, just as a user using, say, open source software like Maltego to do kind of the same idea. Do some data mining. This is an example here of, how you don't even need Facebook's privacy policy to create a network of who knows who and all of those things, which is an awesome reason why we should all just get into the habit of just go into The Sims, admit it, you play it, you play SimCity and The Sims. I don't want to hear it. And just start screenshotting all of your people that you've made in Sims, and then just start tagging yourself as them, or the laughing man. Either way, just start doing that.
I just hope that my friends will stop putting pictures of their kids up with themselves as babies, because I don't know some of these people. When I see their little icon show up, and I'm like, why do you have this item of a flower? That's who you are. I don't know who you are anymore. Thanks a lot for this. I can't identify some of this stuff. I know when it came to I was using Facebook on another device, another app, and it said identify your friends by their photos. And they did the same stupid thing. Like, here's a picture of a dog. So it's throwing me off pretty badly. So if people are bothering to use this, like Facebook saying, your profile picture actually matters. We're going to use this to tag you in the future. Mm-hmm. And maybe it'll stop those ridiculous photos of which one are you in this group photo. Another thing I don't understand. 20 people in a profile picture. Which one are you?
I love also Facebook's angle here, where Aaron Egan said in defense of this change, listen, this is good for you because it's just that much more of a reason that you'll get a ping when someone uploads a photo of you. And if you don't like it, you can report it. You can get your tag removed. It gives you more power over where your likeness is over Facebook. But I know not everybody will see it that way because it's all about money. All right, let's move on to, well, this is sort of all about money too, and also about access and flexibility for the user as it pertains to TV.
Yeah, so we got some more about Aereo. They're still expanding, though. There was an interview with Chet. How do you say his name? Kanogia. I know that's
Kanogia.
Kanogia.
Yes, I had a problem with that earlier too.
He told International Business Times that Aereo plans to launch its Android app in September. Now, the original target date for this app was late last summer. He told the Times that an announcement is coming in September, but an exact date has yet to be determined. And Aereo obviously is expanding a lot right now. It started in New York. Now it's in Boston, Atlanta. Chicago is getting support in September 13th. I just want to do like a prediction time. Darren, do you think Aereo is going to exist this time next year?
If Aereo doesn't exist this time next year in some form or another, the concept will, because this is something that easily lends itself to, we were talking about crowdfunding. How about trans broadcasting? I would love to, set up a relationship with a friend in Toronto to watch the Leafs. If I could set up something here so they can watch the A's or the Giants.
See, I thought that would happen with Slingbox, but I don't see a network of people using Slingbox when it comes to trying to get content over the air or through the internet, because that was challenged legally and that works fine. Aereo looks like it keeps going into different markets, trying not to get sued. They refuse to come to California because there is a precedent set here where something similar was found to be violating copyright. That's why they're not out here in California. Sarah, do you think they're going to exist next year, or they're going to get sued out of existence?
Well, I kind of thought that they'd be gone by now. I'm sort of surprised. I think Aereo is a great idea. I think it's pretty genius actually. But I was surprised that the big networks didn't carry more weight when it came to these lawsuits. So in a way, I sort of feel like, well, is the worst over for Aereo as far as proving that it's a viable business option, loophole or not? It seems judges have sided with Aereo thus far. So I want to.
You want to believe?
I want to believe, and I'm going to predict that yes, Aereo will be around this time next year. It'll be in more markets, and it's it is sort of a stopgap measure, but it is moving towards the way of the future.
No, I think it's way of the future. It's going to be dead by next year. If they're found to be legal and they can actually exist, that means that all the cable manufacturers, the cable companies will make their own clones, and they'll be able to work around all of the ridiculous retransmission fees that the companies don't like or the networks don't. And possibly we'll have the issue of new laws coming into play, which will stop this from happening at all. So either Aereo will exist because, well, they're still not sued out of existence, or there'll be enough competition that they won't have anything, or they won't be even legal by next year. That's my theory as I'm trying to draw an android with antennas on his head.
Sorry, we don't want to distract you.
Doesn't Android already have antennas on his
head?
head?
I had to add little extra antennas for him.
Oh, antennas on his antennas.
I'm working on it.
Yo, dog, I heard you liked antennas.
So I put
I'm still kind of excited to use Aereo. I mean, I know it's not something that is an option for me living in San Francisco, but
Yet.
or if ever, I don't know. Depends on if I are right about this time next year. But I'd love to use it. I like all sort of television alternatives.
$8 a month just to get over-the-air television with like a DVR. That's really what you're paying for. Why wouldn't you just put an antenna up? Wouldn't you just have the same thing?
Well, so I do have an over-the-air antenna. I'm a cord cutter.
Is that you, really?
You're perceptive. I don't know if we've ever talked about that before. But no, I have an OTA antenna and it works great. I actually rarely use it because I'm just so used to all of my on-demand stuff that the whole concept of network television or, watching my, local PBS station, I almost forget it's there, but it works fine. But we know, and particularly in New York City, there are a lot of people who said over-the-air antennas for a variety of reasons. You've got a building or, you're against a brick wall or whatever. It's just not a viable option for everybody. So Aereo is a good solution for those folks. And if you have DVR capabilities, which I don't have as far as my antenna goes, I know that there are some do-it-yourself solutions. Maybe that's for an episode of Know How, but they all sound pretty complicated to me. It would be better than what I've got currently. It would give me more flexibility and more options. But yeah, I don't know. I want to believe. Is that
Aereo
so
UK.
wrong?
It's the X-Files
That's what we
episode.
need.
You want to believe?
That's right.
Top Gear, Doctor Who. That's what we need. Just Aereo UK, make it happen. You know,
Oh.
if you thought having fun with U.S. law was fun, like let's just move into Europe. Then it'll really become a ball of worms. Do worms go in balls?
They might.
they do.
I think worms can go pretty much anywhere. And if you chop them in half, they grow into two
Whoa.
worms. It's pretty amazing.
And
Multiple
you give them
hearts.
rocket launchers and they make funny sayings? No, I'm sorry. That's something else.
We're starting to get into randomizer territory, so let's roll the graphic.
Good idea, Sarah.
Well, we had a straw poll earlier in the morning to figure out if we wanted to talk about leftover swap. This is a solution to help strangers find our leftovers so that we don't throw food away and no one goes hungry. That seems like a really...
That's a real app, okay? It's not an April Fool's Day thing.
Yeah, no, it's real. Yeah. You know, the thing is I always have a lot of leftovers because I cook too much food for one person.
That was up against a pretty heavy competition that Sarah shows as a cat video. Now, we had 74 total votes.
Yeah.
And a straw poll. If you watch the show live, we have a straw poll up. And 44 votes for Sarah shows as a cat video. That's 59%.
Okay.
An overwhelming majority. It's a mandate. They want us to
All
see a
right.
cat
Well,
video.
I want to give the people what they want. This is probably the biggest news in my world over the last week. I know we talk about a lot of pretty serious topics here on Tech News Today, but if you haven't been watching the internet, you may have missed the fact that two of the largest cats in the internet cat world,
Not in size, but in
right,
Notability.
in legend, not in size, certainly not, met each other this week, and cuteness exploded. That's Lil Bub meeting Grumpy Cat. We've got a vine
This is
here.
real?
This is a real thing. Yeah, they were both at the Minnesota Internet Cat Festival, which is
edited.
also a real
Not
thing.
cleverly edited together with
No,
Vine.
no, they're together in a hotel room. A little bit of a staring contest happening. These are two women, by the way. They are both girls.
How did the internet not explode with this?
Well, some of the internet exploded, but if you happen to not be in the part of the internet world that I hang out in, you could be forgiven for missing it. Pretty big deal, everybody.
Well, that's you guys.
This
got
is
what
what
you
you
wanted.
get when
This-
you tell me
This is what you get.
to offer up a cat video as
And
the
this
straw
is a
poll winner.
perfect example of why the internet should never be censored. Let us not forget, these two cats met.
That's right. Net neutrality. Right? Am I
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about when we say
Yeah.
things like that.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That was fun. Could I have more power like that more often? Let's move on to the calendar.
Sure, I guess I'll do the calendar. Apple's iPhone trade-in program goes live starting today in the U.S. You'll be able to trade in your iPhone for credit towards a new one. Tomorrow, August 31st, is the last day you can renew or buy a TechNet subscription from Microsoft. Also tomorrow, Sphero 2.0 shows up in stores. So if you wanted a remote-controlled ball, now's your time to get it. Starting on Sunday, September 1st, Yahoo gets a bunch of rights to Saturday Night Live clips and archives. And a programming note, Twit's closed on Monday, on September 2nd. But for Labor Day, we have a special episode in the feed. It's open mic. We'll be back live on Tuesday the 3rd.
All right, let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got an email from Brian in Minnesota who has a response to a recent episode when we talked about the use of cameras to be able to tell what your emotion was when you were looking into it. He says, I thought the best use of a camera that could tell your emotions would be Netflix recommendations. If I sit down in front of the television, I'm slumped down, I'm depressed, it could recommend some good stand-up comedy. Or if I paired with a Connect, after watching a few episodes of My Little Pony with my kids, it could see whether or not they're still around, or perhaps offer an episode of Breaking Bad to counteract all the pastel colors, or maybe offer another episode if I'm still in the mood for one. But you'd have to still, like, if you've got a good poker face, none of this really works, right? I like the idea of this, but I don't know. Sometimes
like the
I'm
idea.
depressed and I'm pretty good about smiling through the pain.
I like the idea of tying that technology in with the whole pay what you want model. It's like, here's the movie for free. We're going to monitor you and charge you based on how much you liked the movie. So you're sitting there the whole time like,
I hate it. I hate it. And you're like, that's kind of funny. Nope.
nope.
But see,
Very sad.
you
Very
can
sad.
quickly rate videos that way. You got eye rolls going on. I know when I watch some kids programming, I'm like, oh, geez, not this stuff again.
Yeah.
At least then the camera can see me and then say, hey, in the next cue, when we notice the kid's not there, we'll put on Breaking Bad, and it'll be great. And it'll also cause quite a rustle of sorts.
Then again, what if you like being sad? I mean, I just finished season 3 of 6 Feet Under, and I mean, things are not going well for the Fisher family. But I like it, but I'm not like smiling through it. That's for sure.
There must be a special setting for that. Do you like to be sad? We know you've been sad for a very long
disable,
time.
a bypass.
Are you thriving off of your sadness? Okay, perhaps you'd like to watch Lassie. All right.
Face an A-Tour.
Thanks so much, Darren, for joining us on Fridays. It's good to see you back in your homeland. Tell everybody, as you hack across America, what's next for you in Hack 5 and all the stuff you're doing.
Oh, there's some really good stuff going on in Hack 5. We're talking about exfiltration, how you can involuntary back up your friends' data using some really cool techniques to bypass all sorts of fun securities using these guys. So go over to hack5.org, learn how. It's a lot of fun.
We should search for these guys on Hack 5.
USB rubber ducky.
There we go.
Quack.
USB Rubber Ducky, hackacrossamerica.com. You can keep up with everywhere that Darren has been and will be going in the future. And thanks to everybody who submitted to our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. Took the top story, at least it was the top story when I looked. Actually, we didn't end up using that in the show. But we do consider them, all of the stories that you submit, and you vote up or down. It's very helpful. Thanks to everybody who contributed all week. Reminder, as mentioned, Monday is Labor Day. We have a show for you. We have pre-recorded it, but we will not have a live show on Monday morning. In the meantime, you can get a hold of us, TNT at twit.tv. 260-TNT show is our voice message number. Have a great weekend, everybody. Put your feet up. Have a drink. And thanks to Ayaz for all those wonderful illustrations that I didn't even talk about. Need a vacay.
This is the kicking the car thing. I didn't.
I'm such a jerk. You worked so hard on those, and I never.
Oh no!
I never even thought of I was enjoying them, and I forgot to like. Oh man,
That's too bomber as
should we
Fry saying, "Shut up
edit
and take
in
my
a
money."
little like Ayaz talks about his
you don't have
stuff?
We can just
And
put
this
this
is
in.
every time I see the Galaxy Gear, I keep thinking Game Gear. So I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
So I figure this is the watch.
It's a damn shame it's not that heavy.
They just
I would
throw
love the
in.
Galaxy Gear to take like
just-
8 AA batteries on your wrist.
You got that, and yeah. So we got the little Sonic the Hedgehog and slapping a watch on there, and then you've got "I Want Your Data," which is based on the "I Want You" from the Uncle Sam thing.
I
And then
had
for
no idea
Facebook-
that you were a gifted artiste.
Well, this is really hard to do with the stylus. Usually use pen and paper or pencils and
Right.
paper. So this is
Yeah.
really weird. But this is for the Facebook story. If they're going to bother, and everybody, I like that people are writing or my emails showing up right now.
Yeah.
If you are going to bother to have your Facebook photo being used to tag you, everyone switches to the Guy Fawkes mask. I figured they get all anonymous that way.
I love it.
And then
Don't tag me, bro.
this is the Kickstarter thing. I couldn't think of anything. I have 6 monies. That's all I could think of. There's a happy little tree I did today. And then there was Squarespace when Sarah was doing the ad. See, it's a square and space. And this is my Teletubby Android, which
Love him.
has an antenna on his head, and he's got CBS showing on his belly because
so
CBS
cute.
hates Android Aereo so much that that's the case. And those are the drawings.